The mirror in the church dressing room caught me adjusting my tie for the 100th time. My hands wouldn't stop fidgeting. I kept telling myself it was just nerves, not doubt, not fear, just regular wedding jitters. I was 48 years old, and this was supposed to be a new beginning. A clean slate. My name is Victor Harlan. I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and today was the day I was going to remarry. The ceremony was still a few hours away, but everything was already in motion. Clara's dress was hanging at the boutique, the guests were slowly arriving at the hotel, and I'd just gotten off the phone with the caterer, confirming the head count. I should have felt relief. Instead, I was checking the clock every 30 seconds. Then came the knock. Not a polite tap, a hard, insistent pounding that echoed down the hallway of the old church. One of the ushers peeked inside the room. Mr. Harlan? There's a woman at the front door. She says she's your wife." I stood up slowly. "You mean Clara?" He shook his head. "No, sir. She says her name is Sophia." I swear my heart stopped. I hadn't heard that name, aloud, anyway, in over 6 years. I walked to the front lobby of the church, not fully sure what I expected to see. A hallucination? A prank? But there she was, Sophia, standing in the entrance like she'd just come back from a walk around the block, not from 6 years of being missing. She looked the same. A little thinner maybe, hair longer. But she was still Sophia, my ex-wife, the woman who left behind only a debit card and a cryptic note. "I heard you were getting married," she said with a faint smile, like she'd been invited. I thought I'd stop by. This is still my home, after all. My jaw tightened. I didn't trust myself to speak. The usher hovered behind me. "Do you want me to call someone?" "Yes," I said. "Call the police." Sophia's expression didn't even flicker. "Victor, don't be dramatic. You vanished. For 6 years. Without a word. And now you show up on my wedding day?" "I had to take care of some things," she said vaguely, her arms crossed like we were having a casual disagreement over dinner plans. "But I'm back now, so I figure we should talk." 2 officers arrived within 15 minutes. They asked her name. She gave it. They asked where she'd been. She dodged. "I was safe," she said. "That's all that matters." I stood to the side, my arms folded, eyes locked on her. Inside, I was shaking, not with sadness, not even confusion, but pure fury. This woman, who had destroyed me once already, now thought she could stroll back into my life on the very day I was finally moving on. "You're interrupting a wedding," I said. "Mine." She looked around the church and tilted her head. "Seems like a rush job. Are you sure this is what you want?" The officer stepped in. "Ma'am, you've been reported missing since 2017. We'll need you to come with us and answer some questions." She didn't resist, just smiled one last time at me. That same smug, knowing look I remembered from all our worst arguments. "This isn't over," she said. I didn't reply. I just turned my back and walked away. For the first time in 6 years, I wasn't chasing ghosts. Let the police deal with her. I had a wedding to get ready for. But deep down, I knew Sophia's return was going to tear through everything I'd built, unless I stopped her myself. That night, I couldn't sleep. Even after the police had taken Sophia in for questioning. Even after they called later to say she hadn't committed a crime, technically, my mind wouldn't settle. The memories started coming back like they always did when I let my guard down. That was 6 years ago, almost to the day. Sophia and I met in college. She was majoring in graphic design. I was studying business administration and working nights at a hotel. From the start, she was the kind of person who lit up a room. Unpredictable, loud in a charming way, and full of ideas she never followed through on. I didn't mind back then. I thought it meant she was creative. We got married in our late 20s. Bought a modest house on the edge of Goose Creek. We fought a lot, sure, but I thought that was normal. Sophia had a habit of walking out when things got tense, disappearing for a few days to clear her head. She always came back, until the day she didn't. It was a Saturday morning. I remember because I'd gone to get donuts. When I came home, her car was gone. I figured she was at her sister's or off at the farmer's market. Then I saw the note. "Don't come looking for me. I'll be fine. I just can't do this anymore." Beside it sat her debit card and house keys. That was it. I called everyone. Her sister, her old friends, even her old boss. No one had seen her. After 24 hours, I filed a missing person report. Within 48, I was a suspect. They brought me in for questioning 3 times that week. They tore apart the house, took our laptops, checked her social media, even dug up a part of the backyard. I was handcuffed once, paraded out of my own home in front of neighbors who used to wave when I mowed the lawn. They found nothing. No blood. No forced entry. No trace of Sophia beyond the note and the debit card. But that didn't stop the whispers. The local news ran a segment on her disappearance. They used her college graduation photo, the one where she's wearing red lipstick and holding a fake diploma with both hands. They called her the Goose Creek Bride. The implication was clear: young, beautiful woman vanishes. Husband stays behind and won't stop giving interviews. Must be hiding something. I stopped going outside during daylight. The mail piled up. My boss at the marketing firm gave me 2 weeks of paid leave and then told me not to come back. I couldn't even go to the gas station without someone staring. I ended up living in a spare bedroom above my cousin Marianne's garage for almost a year. She was the only one who didn't flinch when she saw me. "People want a villain," she said one night, handing me a beer. "They don't know what to do when there's no clean ending." We got close during that time, maybe too close. She'd just gone through a divorce, and we found comfort in each other. Nothing scandalous, nothing long-term. But in those quiet months, she was the one person who made me feel human again. Eventually, the authorities gave up. There was no evidence of foul play. After 3 years, Sophia was declared legally missing. I filed for a dissolution of marriage and got it. No fight, no complications, no word from her. Over time, things got quieter. I got a job with a local tech startup. I worked my way up. I took care of Daniel, our son, who was 13 when she vanished. He never wanted to talk about her, and I didn't push it. We managed. By year 5, I was almost okay. By year 6, I was engaged. And now, here she was again. Alive. Unbothered. Acting like none of it happened. The worst part? The world would see her reappearance and start asking the same damn questions all over again. But this time, I was ready for the answers. It started as a simple email. A short, polite message from a university sponsorship coordinator looking for local professionals willing to support students in need. At the time, I was finally in a place where I could say yes to things again. So I said yes. Her name was Clara Whitmore, 24, business student at the College of Charleston. Bright, determined, and blunt in a way that reminded me of a much younger version of myself. We met at a coffee shop downtown. She was already there when I arrived, typing on a laptop with chipped blue nail polish and earbuds dangling from one ear. She looked up, gave me a once-over, and said, "You don't look like a tech guy." "I get that a lot," I said. She smiled. "You look more like someone who owns the place." I helped build it. That seemed to impress her. The original pitch was simple. I'd help cover some of her tuition and living expenses through the university's alumni-funded mentorship program. In return, she'd keep a certain GPA and meet with me once a month to talk through goals, internships, resumes, that kind of thing. But after the first 2 meetings, Clara proposed something different. "I don't want pity money," she said over lemon scones at a bakery on East Bay. "And I'm not here to trade sob stories. If you're going to support me, I want it to be a deal. Clean. Consensual. Terms we both agree on." I raised an eyebrow. "Go on." She pulled out a notepad and slid it across the table. She'd written down 3 rules. Exclusivity. I wouldn't fund any other students. Honesty. We tell each other the truth, even when it's awkward. Boundaries. No romantic pressure. But emotional honesty is allowed. I stared at the list. "You've done this before." "No," she said, "but I've had to grow up fast." Clara was the youngest of 3 kids from rural Georgia. Her dad passed away when she was in high school. Her mom worked doubles at a textile plant until she got injured. Clara got herself into college on merit, but was drowning in loans and working 2 part-time jobs. The more she talked, the more I saw her not as a student, but as a survivor. Over the next year, our arrangement shifted. We didn't call it dating, not at first, but we spent more time together than I spent with anyone else. She helped me reorganize the books at the company, sat in on meetings, asked smart questions. "You're not just a tech guy," she told me once. "You're a fixer. You find broken things and try to make them better." I didn't say anything, but she wasn't wrong. Slowly, she started sharing more of herself. I learned she liked Korean dramas and hated seafood. That she kept a journal but never let anyone read it. That she thought I looked sad when I smiled. And me? I started shaving again. Working out. I even bought new clothes, the kind that fit. Clara called them grown man clothes. and said I finally looked like someone who ran a company instead of hiding in one. She never asked about Sophia. I never brought it up. But her presence filled a hole I didn't realize was still wide open. One night, as we sat on the couch watching some ridiculous dating show, she leaned her head against my shoulder and whispered, "You're not broken, you know." I didn't believe it then, but I wanted to. And that was the start of everything. It was a Thursday afternoon when everything started to unravel again. Clara had just left my place after spending the night. She'd made French toast in my kitchen, barefoot and humming along to a song she half remembered from high school. I hadn't seen her that light in weeks. Midterms were done. She'd nailed a job interview at a consulting firm, and we were starting to talk seriously about what came after graduation. Then she got the message. It was from a freelance journalist named Trent Yarrow. I remembered the name. He'd written a salacious piece years ago called The Husband Left Behind, all about Sophia's disappearance and my alleged involvement. He didn't print lies, just enough innuendo to stain my name without risking a lawsuit. The message read, "Hi Clara, I'm writing a follow-up to my piece on Victor Harlan and the Goose Creek case. You should know who you're involved with. If you'd like to comment, I'd love to talk. For your safety, I'd suggest reading this first." Link to archived article. Clara didn't say anything right away. She just forwarded it to me, followed by one short line. "Is this true?" I stared at the screen for a long time. My hands didn't move. My throat dried out. I knew this day would come. I just thought I'd have more time. When I called, she didn't answer. By the next morning, she'd stopped responding completely. I don't remember most of that weekend. I just know I didn't sleep. My appetite disappeared. I kept replaying that message in my head, wondering what Clara must have thought when she read that headline. Husband of missing woman still under cloud of suspicion. I needed to do something. So I lawyered up. I contacted one of the best defamation attorneys in the state, a client-turned-friend named Roland Hennings, and told him I was ready to file suit. Against the tabloid. Against the police department for mishandling the early investigation. Against Trent Yarrow personally for profiting off my ruin. Roland raised an eyebrow. "Are you ready to relive all of it again?" "No," I said, "but I'm ready to end it." The case made waves before it even hit the courts. People remembered Sophia's story. And now, with her return making headlines, the timing was perfect. A local talk show invited me to speak. I said yes. That interview changed everything. I told the truth, not the sanitized version, but the raw one. I talked about how Sophia had vanished, how the police treated me, how my reputation crumbled. I talked about losing my job, my house, my son's trust. I even talked about Marianne and how shame nearly kept me from accepting help. I didn't cry, but I let my voice crack. Just enough. The video went viral overnight. Comments poured in. People apologized. People admitted they'd believed the worst. And in the middle of it all, Clara showed up. She didn't text. She came to my office in person, eyes red, voice trembling. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have come to you first." I stood up slowly. "Why didn't you?" "Because I didn't want it to be true," she said. "And I was scared it might be." I nodded. "And now?" She stepped closer, reaching for my hand. "Now I know who you are. And what they said doesn't come close. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. The silence between us was enough. The kind that came not from fear, but from finally being seen. And for the first time since Sophia disappeared, I felt like the world had stopped accusing me long enough to hear me speak. This time, they believed me. And more importantly, so did she. Clara and I took our time getting back to normal after the media storm. She was cautious but steady, and I gave her space when she needed it. Things between us weren't fragile anymore, just quiet in the way a house feels after a long thunderstorm. But then came the holidays. "We should go to my mom's," Clara said one night, flipping through her planner. "She wants to meet you." I raised an eyebrow. "Lydia? The same Lydia who once called me a mystery man with a messy past?" Clara winced. "She reads the tabloids. She's trying to unread them now." "Does she know Sophia's back?" "She knows," Clara said. "And she thinks it's complicated, which is polite speak for she doesn't trust you." I chuckled dryly. "Can't wait." We drove to Asheville the day before Christmas Eve. Her mom lived in a sprawling craftsman-style home with oversized wreaths on every window and a driveway that smelled like money and judgment. Lydia answered the door in pearls and a cashmere sweater. Her smile was tight, her handshake tighter. "I hear you've had quite the year," she said, guiding me inside without waiting for an answer. Clara's dad, Grant, was more relaxed, flannel shirt, glass of bourbon, the kind of guy who watched things carefully before speaking. I liked him immediately. Dinner was formal. Too many forks. Too little warmth. Clara did her best to keep the conversation moving, but her mother couldn't help herself. So, Lydia said, swirling wine. How does one rebuild a reputation after all that? Clara nearly dropped her fork. Mom, it's a fair question, Lydia said. I kept my voice calm. One day at a time. The truth helps. Lydia nodded once, then shifted her attention to Clara. And you're certain this is the right environment for you, given your career ambitions? Clara's face went stone cold. Mom, if you're asking whether I've made a mistake by choosing Victor, then ask it plainly. Silence. I'm not leaving him, Clara said. I'm not apologizing for loving him. And I'm not interested in justifying that to you or anyone else. For a second, no one breathed. Then Grant let out a low whistle. Well, that's the firmest thing I've heard at this table all night. After dinner, Lydia disappeared to the kitchen, and Grant followed me out to the porch with 2 tumblers of bourbon. He handed me one and leaned against the rail. She gets stuck in her ways, he said. But she'll come around. I looked at him. And you? Grant shrugged. I think you've had your name dragged through hell and came out steady. That says something. He raised his glass. I raised mine. We left the next morning. Lydia hugged Clara stiffly, then turned to me with a strange expression, not approval, but maybe the beginning of it. A week later, I got a call. Unknown number. When I picked up, it was Grant. Got a spare hour next time you're in Asheville? He asked. I'd like to hear more about that tech firm you built. And just like that, a door opened. Not all at once, but enough. The new year came with quiet victories. In late January, the board asked me to take over as interim CEO. Officially, it was because Michael, the founder, was stepping away for health reasons. Unofficially, I think everyone just realized I'd already been running things behind the curtain for months. You sure you want the spotlight? Clara asked, lounging on the couch in my hoodie while I read the offer letter. I didn't ask for it, I said. But maybe it's time I stop hiding. She smiled, her chin propped on her hand. Took you long enough. The promotion brought attention. Media requests, investor meetings, strategic planning sessions that ran until midnight. But for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged. I wasn't the guy people whispered about. I was the one they listened to. The one leading the room. A month later, Michael made me an offer, a private buyout. I'd become full owner of the company over the next 2 years with favorable terms. Clara and I sat on the balcony that night, sharing a bottle of champagne and watching the city lights blink like a heartbeat. You realize this changes everything, right? She said. Not everything, I said, sliding my arm around her waist. I'm still just a guy trying to figure it all out. She leaned her head against my shoulder. You're not just anything anymore. But not everything was forward-looking. My son, Daniel, was 20 now, a junior at Clemson, and still barely spoke to me. Ever since Sophia vanished, he'd kept a piece of himself locked away. And when she returned, he shut me out even more. I couldn't blame him. He'd been 12 when it happened. Old enough to feel the loss. Young enough to think it was his fault. Or maybe mine. The few times we talked, it was stiff. Surface level. He'd ask about tuition, and I'd ask about classes. That was the extent of our relationship. He still called me Dad, but it felt like a label, not a name. Clara pushed gently. Have you reached out lately? I nodded. He texted me back last week. What did he say? Okay. She winced. Progress. By his standards? Yeah. She never pushed harder than that, but she kept nudging me to keep the line open. So I did. I sent Daniel a picture of the office we were moving into downtown. He sent back a thumbs-up emoji. A few days later, I invited him to come shadow me for a week during spring break. No pressure. To my surprise, he didn't say no. He just said, I'll think about it. Clara grinned when I told her. That's a yes in disguise. Maybe it was. Maybe not. But either way, the wall between us didn't feel quite so permanent. One night, after Clara fell asleep beside me, I sat at the kitchen table flipping through an old photo album. There was one picture, Daniel, 6 years old, sitting on Sophia's lap at the park. I stared at it for a long time. I wasn't trying to erase the past, just trying to make peace with it. Clara came in, bleary-eyed. She slid her arms around my chest from behind and whispered, Come to bed. Tomorrow's got enough of its own ghosts. And just like that, I closed the album. Because she was right. Tomorrow was coming fast. and I was finally ready for it. It was late April when Sophia showed up again, this time not in a church lobby or a police station, but in my office lobby downtown, dressed like she belonged there. My assistant buzzed me with a tone that told me something was off. She says she's your wife. She's not, I said flatly. Send her in. Sophia walked in like she owned the place. Designer sunglasses, glossy hair, heels that clicked against the tile like punctuation. She sat across from my desk without waiting to be offered a seat. Well, she said, taking in the room. You've done well for yourself. I didn't say anything. Just watched her scan the walls, the furniture, the city view behind me. I could see it happening in real time, her sizing everything up like a prize. I've been staying in Charlotte, she said. Figured I'd let the dust settle. I crossed my arms. Cut to the part where you tell me what you want. She blinked. I'm not here to start a fight. No, I said, because showing up unannounced, again, is starting to feel like a habit. Sophia leaned back in her chair, the cool smirk returning. I just think it's worth discussing what I'm owed. That stopped me. Owed? Well, Victor, she said with a shrug. We were still married when I disappeared. That means technically I'm entitled to. You're not, I interrupted. We had you declared legally missing. A court ruled you abandoned your property, your family, your marriage. You don't get to show up 6 years later and ask for a piece of something you walked away from. Her smile faltered. I was manipulated. You don't know what I went through. No, I said, standing. And you never told me. You vanished, Sophia. You left me to rot under suspicion, to raise our son alone, to rebuild from nothing. And now you're back because you see money. For a long second, she didn't speak. Then her voice cracked, not from sadness, but from the realization that her plan wasn't working. I thought I could just come back, that we'd talk, that maybe Daniel would want to see me. The mention of Daniel made something in me go cold. He doesn't, I said. You don't know him anymore. I gave birth to him, she whispered. You disappeared when he needed you most. Just then, the office door opened. I turned, expecting my assistant, but it was Daniel. He had stopped by, unannounced, to say he'd accept the shadowing offer. He took one look at Sophia and froze. She rose slowly. Daniel, oh my God, you've grown so much. Daniel's face tightened. His jaw clenched. You remember me, right? She said softly. I missed you so much. He looked at me first. Not her. Me. And then he said it. I used to blame him, Daniel said, nodding toward me. For everything. For you being gone. For how hard life got. Sophia smiled faintly, taking a step forward. It wasn't his fault, baby. No. Daniel cut in, his voice sharp. I don't blame him anymore. Sophia's face dropped. I get it now, Daniel continued. He stayed. You didn't. That's the difference. Silence. She blinked hard, like she hadn't prepared for this version of him. Tall, calm, clear-eyed. Daniel, I just need a chance. No, he said. You needed to give us one. Years ago. He turned and walked out without another word. When the door clicked shut behind him, Sophia sat back down. But the fight was gone. So was the fire. I thought I could fix this, she whispered. You waited too long, I said quietly. For the first time, she looked scared. Not of me, but of everything she'd lost. And this time, I didn't feel like the one being left behind. She did. Clara graduated in May. Top of her class. Honors sash. The whole deal. The ceremony was held in a packed auditorium at the College of Charleston, sunlight pouring through the tall windows like something out of a movie. I sat near the back with Lydia and Grant, her mother still suspicious, her father now fully on my side. When they called her name, Clara walked across the stage like she'd been doing it her whole life. Chin high, steps solid, eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on me. She gave the tiniest smile and a thumbs up. The moment hit me harder than I expected. Afterward, we went out for drinks, and Clara barely touched hers. She kept tapping her fingers against the table, eyes darting to mine and back. I have something to ask, she finally said. I raised an eyebrow. That's usually my line. She reached into her purse and slid a small white envelope across the table. Inside was a contract, a prenuptial agreement. I'm not asking you for anything, she said before I could speak. If we do this, if we get married, I want it to be about love, not money. I don't want anyone thinking I'm here for the check. I stared at her, speechless for a moment. Clara, you don't have to prove anything. I want to, she said. This is for me, not just for you. I nodded. Then we'll sign it together. We were married that August in a small, elegant ceremony held on a rooftop overlooking Charleston Harbor. No press, no fuss, just 20 people, a string quartet, and vows that felt like a reset button on the rest of my life. Clara wore a short ivory dress and yellow heels. I wore a navy suit and a heart that finally felt full again. Lydia showed up, not in pearls, but in a soft blue wrap dress. She smiled for pictures and even cried during Clara's vows. It wasn't acceptance yet, but it was progress. At the reception, Clara and I stood before the guests, hand in hand. I raised a glass for a toast, but before I spoke, I turned toward the corner of the room where Sophia stood. Yes, she came, not as a guest, but as a symbol. I had invited the press, just 2 local outlets. No drama, just a brief introduction. Some of you know this story already, I told the room. But this is Sophia Harlan, once my wife, and once missing. She's here tonight, not to reclaim anything, but to make peace. She gave a brief nod, polite, silent. The reporters took their photos, murmured some questions. Sophia gave vague answers. She was still holding on to her dignity, even now. I let her. That was the gift. By the end of the night, she was gone. No scenes, no bitterness. Just a woman finally understanding that the chapter she'd walked out of was never going to wait for her return. As Clara and I danced to a slow song under cafe lights, she leaned up and whispered. That was kind. Necessary, I whispered back. She needed a stage to leave on. Clara smiled. You gave her that. I gave her a mirror, I said. She did the rest. And we danced, not to celebrate what we'd built, but to honor what we'd survived. Together. The night after our wedding, Clara stood at the bathroom sink, still in her dress shirt, her hair loose from dancing. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, unbuttoning my cuffs when I saw her reach into her overnight bag and pull out a small orange pill bottle. She held it in her palm, looked down at it for a moment, then walked over to me. I'm done with these, she said softly. I looked up. Are you sure? She nodded, uncapped the bottle, and dropped the pills one by one into the trash can beside the bed. I want a family, she said. With you. I don't want to wait anymore. I took her hand gently. Then let's build it. That was the start of everything new. In the months that followed, life changed in ways I hadn't dared hope for. The house got quieter and warmer at the same time. Clara started working at the company, not in a ceremonial role, but as my partner. She was sharp, strategic, and had an instinct for people that even I didn't. The board loved her. So did the staff. Eventually, they stopped seeing her as my wife and started seeing her as the future COO. At home, things softened. We spent slow Sundays reading on the porch. We cooked dinner together. She painted the spare bedroom green just in case. I didn't even have to ask. Then came the call. Daniel, can we talk? He asked one afternoon out of nowhere. We met at a diner off I-26, same one I used to take him to after soccer practice when he was a kid. He looked older now, facial hair, heavier voice, but that same tilt to his head when he was thinking something through. I want to intern with you, he said. Not because I have to, because I want to learn. I didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. I just stared at him. Then I nodded. Okay, let's start Monday. He smiled, tight, unsure, but it was the first real one I'd seen from him in years. Sophia faded quietly after that. She moved to Atlanta and eventually remarried a man who managed a boutique furniture store. Daniel didn't keep in touch, and I didn't ask questions. There was no court battle, no drama, just silence, the kind that finally felt earned. Lydia, Clara's mother, came around more after we announced the pregnancy. She brought over a casserole, then a crib. Then finally, she came just to sit and talk. I misjudged you, she told me one afternoon while Clara napped. No, I said, smiling. You just didn't know me yet. And that was the truth. Our daughter, Madeline, was born the next spring. She had Clara's eyes and my quiet. The night we brought her home, I stood in the nursery and watched her sleep in the crib I built by hand. I didn't feel fear, or grief, or the weight of everything I'd lost. I just felt full. I had rebuilt my life from the wreckage Sophia left behind. And every brick I laid since, every moment, every scar, led me here. To a future I thought I'd never be worthy of. But I was. And this time, no one could take it from me.